Zorro! Prepare to hear this furious exclamation many times throughout your adventure, if you choose to take on the mantle of that dapper, Robin Hoodish rogue Zorro in his or her latest adventure, Zorro The Chronicles. Based on the kids' show that aired in 2015, Zorro The Chronicles drops you into the early years of Diego, aka Zorro, and his twin sister, Inez, as they fight against ruthless corruption in Mexico. If you have any prior knowledge of Zorro, then you know the basics of the story, a boon, as the game is very light on narrative of any sort. The game is, you see, squarely aimed at kids and fans of the show, so if you've come into the game having watched it, you'll know who the characters are, both good and evil, and why you should care. However, if you haven't watched the show, can you still jump into this? Completely, though there'll be less context to some encounters. The game, and Zorro's history, give you just enough explanations at the start of each mission to know why you're there and what you're expected to do. Irrespective of the reasons you're there to steal back a lockbox, free innocent prisoners, or just humiliate the bad guys, the game is an exercise in simplicity, a design that's to its credit, rather than a detriment. Now, the levels start off small, with few objectives, but they grow in size and add multiple tasks in later missions. The objectives themselves are rather simple, but it's how the game lets you tackle them that matters. Zorro The Chronicles allows you to play it as an in-your-face brawler or as a stealthy rogue. At the start of each level, you can choose between a stealth insertion or a combat one, which sort of changes up where you begin. Regardless of the option you choose, however, you're not locked into a specific playstyle, and you can change your mind if you want to mix it up. Zorro and Inez are proficient in both combat and stealth, and both these systems are simple and work perfectly fine. Combat takes a page from the Batman Arkham games, surrounding you with multiple enemies at a time. Zorro or Inez have a series of combo-based attacks at their disposal, though button mashing will get you through just as easily. They can counter enemies' attacks when the button prompt shows up above their head, and they can flip roll or jump over enemies' heads. All these skills have their uses depending on the various enemy types you'll face. The stealth works just as well. Enemies have a vision radius, though you get a lot of leeway before they're fully alert to you. You can crouch down, hide behind objects, and, most importantly, use the whip as a grappling hook to reach specific objects and higher ledges, letting you brood and stalk them from above like the best of them. You've also got a death from above attack at your disposal, and a one-shot stealth attack if you can successfully sneak up behind someone. The major difference between playing as Diego or Inez, beyond their character models, is down to how much health they have, and how many special instant knockouts they can use. Inez has more health, while Diego has got more specials. As is par for the course these days, defeating enemies and breaking objects grants you XP that you can then use to purchase a few new abilities and more health. One lovely thing about the combat is that the levels are filled with potential environment knockouts. You can push enemies into barrels, get them kicked by horses, and knock them into fountains or fire pits. It's an instant KO for anyone, and these are the moments where Zorro the Chronicles shows his personality. The environment knockouts and your specials are, honestly, cartoony and goofy in the best way possible. Zorro carves his marks on enemies, drops their pants, or gets Tornado to charge in and kick them, leaving bunches of enemies sitting around with their pants around their ankles while you swagger on to the next encounter. Importantly, no one dies here. To add a bit of replayability, the game does challenge you with specific objectives in some encounters, such as taking out guards without being noticed, or spending your time putting up humorous posters in each level. You'll have to clear all the bonus objectives and the bland poster activity if you want 100% a level, though it does earn you a big XP boost. Visually, the game reproduces the style of the show well enough. It's all fully stylized, with levels that grow larger and more complex as time goes on. It's a nice, albeit Spartan take on Mexico. They won't have your jaw dropping, but it still looks good enough to make the game aesthetically pleasing. Audio-wise, there's very little voice work on display, with our protagonist and antagonist mostly grunting or saying a word or two. Cinematics are also devoid of dialogue. As an official tie-in title, it betrays its budget status, but it doesn't really hurt the gameplay experience. What does affect the gameplay, however, is a couple of issues worth noting. The first one is the camera can be quite a pain, as it doesn't always frame the action properly when zooming out for encounters. Possibly the biggest issue with controlling either Zorro or Inez is their speed. They move very slowly by default, and you have to hold down a button to run. Worse still is triggering that run mode will immediately pull you out of stealth mode when you want to move quickly. Honestly, the run should have been the default speed to make the stealth approach less tedious. Another issue, and hopefully one that can be patched quickly, is the ability for protagonists to get stuck on objects or stuck in animation cycles, unable to move on from where they were standing, regardless of what I tried. I'd have to quit the mission to fix this, but thankfully it only happened 3 times in my entire playthrough. Overall, Zorro The Chronicles feels a lot like a tie-in game that could have been developed sometime in the late PS1 or even PS2 generation, back when these tie-in games still had a decent level of quality behind them. With 18 missions to tackle, Zorro The Chronicles provides plenty of content, and is perfect for younger gamers to delve into, even if some repetition does set in before the end. All in all, it's a fun but unremarkable way to pass the time.